You are currently shivering because your office thermostat is set to 68. You feel like a frozen popsicle in a business casual button-down. You might even send a passive-aggressive email to the facility manager today. Modern comfort has made us incredibly soft and remarkably sensitive to cold. Now imagine the thermostat is broken forever and the windows are gone. Imagine the outside air is a soul-crushing negative 30 degrees Celsius. There is no central heating and no wool blanket from the mall. You are standing in a treeless wasteland of ice and howling wind. This was not a nightmare for your ancestors. This was their Tuesday morning during the last glacial maximum. 25,000 years ago, the world was a giant, unforgiving freezer. Massive glaciers crushed the landscape under miles of heavy blue ice. We are technically a tropical species designed for the warm African sun. Yet somehow our ancestors didn't just survive this frozen apocalypse. They absolutely conquered it with nothing but stones and raw grit. How did a naked ape survive temperatures that would freeze modern blood? How did we thrive when more powerful creatures simply laid down and died? The answer is far more complex than just hiding in a dark cave. It involves high-tech engineering, super-carnivore diets, and a revolutionary tiny invention. We often picture the Ice Age as a time of miserable, shivering brutes. We imagine cavemen huddled together, barely clinging to a flickering, weak flame. We think of them as primitive people waiting for the weather to improve. This is a complete and total insult to their incredible genius. Our ancestors were not victims of the cold. They were its masters. They were elite engineers who understood thermal mass and aerodynamic design. They didn't just find shelter. They manufactured it from the ground up. In the wood-scarce regions of modern-day Ukraine, they faced a massive problem. There were no trees to build cabins and no caves for miles. So they looked at the bones of the mighty mammoth and saw bricks. They constructed massive circular huts using mammoth skulls as heavy foundations. They used the long, curved tusks to support complex roof structures. Then they draped heavy animal hides over the bone frames for insulation. These bone huts were not temporary tents or fragile lean-tos. Archaeology shows these structures were incredibly sturdy and lasted for many centuries. They even included early ventilation systems to keep the air fresh and clean. They understood that fire needs oxygen, but the room needs to stay warm. Some groups even dug their homes deep into the frozen, solid earth. They used the natural thermal mass of the ground to stay warm. While the surface was a frozen hell, their semi-subterranean pits stayed cozy. This wasn't just survival, it was the birth of advanced human architecture. Forget everything you saw in the movies about throwing flimsy wooden sticks. Trying to throw a spear at a mammoth is like throwing toothpicks. You would just make a 6-ton beast very, very angry at you. Our ancestors used the most terrifying weapon in the entire world. They used the laws of physics and the animal's own massive weight. Recent research suggests they used a specialized technique called the braced pike. A hunter would plant the butt of a spear deep into the ground. They would angle the tip, fitted with a razor-sharp clovis point, upward. Then they would wait for the massive animal to charge toward them. The mammoth's own momentum would drive the stone point deep into its chest. This delivered a force that no human arm could ever hope to replicate. They were super-carnivores who specialized in hunting the biggest prizes on Earth. Chemical analysis of ancient bones shows something truly and remarkably shocking. Up to 98% of their calories came from mammoths and bison. They weren't eating salad, they were eating massive amounts of pure fat. High fat content was the secret fuel for the expanding human brain. It was the only way to maintain body heat in sub-zero conditions. They were essentially biological furnaces fueled by the calories of ancient giants. But staying warm required more than just eating fat and building huts. It required the most important technological revolution in human history. Around 30,000 years ago, someone invented the tiny bone needle. This simple tool changed the destiny of our entire human species forever. It allowed for the creation of tailored, form-fitting, and multi-layered clothing. Our ancestors didn't just throw a dirty fur rug over their shoulders. They were wearing the prehistoric equivalent of high-tech Arctic survival gear. They specifically chose reindeer fur because the hairs are actually hollow. These hollow hairs trap air, making them the best natural insulators available. They sewed layered parkas, mittens, and boots that were perfectly fitted. They even developed fitted undergarments to keep sweat away from the skin. Sweat is a silent killer in the Arctic because it eventually freezes. By keeping dry, they stayed alive in conditions that killed the Neanderthals. Neanderthals relied on simple draped furs that leaked precious body heat. Homo sapiens used needles to seal the warmth inside their clothing. This gave us the mobility to hunt and explore the frozen landscape. Fire was another area where our ancestors showed their true technical brilliance. On the frozen steppes, wood was often impossible to find for fuel, so humans pioneered a high-intensity fire technology known as bone fires. They discovered that the fatty marrow inside bones burns like a candle. They built sophisticated hearths that could reach over 600 degrees Celsius. They mastered airflow to keep these fires burning through the long night. They carried embers in leather pouches lined with special tinder fungus. This allowed them to transport the gift of fire across vast distances. They weren't just using fire, they were managing it like master scientists. However, the most powerful survival tool wasn't a spear or a needle. It was the invisible web of connection between different groups of people. Evidence shows that humans traded stone tools across 400 miles. If one region faced a famine, they had friends in distant lands. They built massive social networks that acted as a biological safety net. Neanderthals lived in small, isolated family bands that rarely met others. When things got tough, the Neanderthals had no one to call for help. Homo sapiens had a global community and a shared culture of survival. They used art and figurines to share vital information across the generations. The famous Venus figurines were likely not just pieces of ancient art. They were often found near the edges of advancing, dangerous glacial sheets. They might have represented the ideal of survival and healthy fat storage. They were symbols of hope in a world that felt constantly dying. Through storytelling and language, they passed down maps of hidden warm pockets. These warm refugia were the only reason we didn't go completely extinct. Knowledge was the hard drive that kept the human race running forward. They remembered where the elk moved and where the springs never froze. They didn't just live in the moment, they lived in the future. They planned for the next 1,000 years of cold while sitting by fires. This realization shifts everything we know about the core human condition. We often feel like we are falling apart in our modern lives. We feel overwhelmed by the complexity and the stress of the world. But your body is the direct descendant of the ultimate survival champions. You carry the DNA of people who looked at glaciers and didn't blink. You are the result of thousands of years of perfect communal cooperation. Every time you put on a jacket, you are using ancient technology. Every time you share a meal with a friend, you strengthen the network. We didn't survive the Ice Age because we had the biggest muscles. We survived because we had the biggest hearts and the best stories. We looked at the darkness and decided to build a fire together. We looked at the bones of the dead and built a home. This is the true legacy of being a human being on Earth. We are a species that takes the cold and turns it into warmth. So the next time you feel cold, remember your incredible, brilliant ancestors. You are not malfunctioning because you feel the sting of the winter. You are simply remembering the long struggle that brought you here today. You are never going to let the fire go out in the dark. You are the fire that survived the longest winter in human history. That ancient strength is still pulsing through your veins right now today. You are a master of adaptation and a child of the frost. You were built to endure the most impossible conditions with a smile. Our ancestors paved the way through the ice so we could walk here. They turned the end of the world into the beginning of us. They were the first engineers and the first true global social networkers. We owe our very existence to their needles, pikes, and bone huts. They proved that even in the coldest dark, we shine the brightest. If this look into our frozen past gave you some modern warmth, please consider hitting the like button to help our channel grow today. Subscribe and hit the bell icon to join our curious ancient tribe. Leave a comment below about what ancient mystery we should solve next. Tell us what your favorite piece of Ice Age technology is today. Stay warm, stay curious, and keep remembering who you really are today. You are the survivor of the greatest challenge the Earth ever offered. The ice is gone, but the spirit of the survivor remains inside. We will see you in the next deep dive into our past. Until then, keep the fire burning bright in your own modern life. Your ancestors are watching, and they are very proud of your progress. You have come a long way from the mammoth bone hut indeed. But the core of who you are has not changed one bit. You are still the ape that conquered the coldest winter on record. That is a fact worth remembering every single time it starts snowing. Thank you for watching and supporting the journey back through time today. We hope you found this exploration of the Ice Age deeply inspiring. Ancient history is not just about the dead, it is about you. It is the story of how you became the person you are. Every tool we use today has a shadow in the prehistoric past. Every social bond we form is an echo of the ancient alliance. We are more connected to the Ice Age than we often realize. It is time to embrace our inner engineer and our inner survivor. The world is still a challenging place, but we are ready now. We have the needles and we have the fire to move forward. Let us continue to build our bone huts against the modern wind. Let us continue to trade our stories across the digital landscape today. The Ice Age ended, but the human story is only just beginning.